Hello and welcome to Take 5 with Gaia. I am Gaia, believe it or not, and today I'm going to be talking about The Devil Wears Prada 2. I'm really excited to get into it. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. So, to give you an idea, I'm going to start kind of debriefing, obviously, The Devil Wears Prada 1, the original, before taking you through to the marketing for the sequel, and then my actual thoughts about the sequel and how it's been received and what I think about all of that. And then finally, make sure to stick around for my 5-star recommendation of the week. And yeah, if you like what you hear or if you have anything to say, and I'm sure you do, please make sure to comment and like and subscribe wherever you're seeing or listening to this. That would help me a lot. Let's take 5 and dive in. So as I said, I'm going to give you a bit of a rundown of the first film in case you might live under a rock, I don't know, or maybe you're just not as aware about these kinds of things as the average person. That's perfectly fine. Let me explain it to you. The Devil Wears Prada was originally actually a book by Lauren Weisberger, I think that's how you pronounce it, who basically did a bit of an expose about Anna Wintour, the chief editor of Vogue. Now, again, if you live under a rock, Vogue is like one of the most prestigious publications on earth when it comes to fashion. And Anna Wintour, she really is like a big dog in the fashion industry. She is the originator of the Met Gala, which is a yearly ball of sorts, which raises money for the Metropolitan Museum in New York. And it's just a very huge and prestigious event every year, and it's always on the first Monday of May. Anyways, but Anna Wintour's known for way more than the Met Gala, but you know. This Lauren Weisberger worked for a short time as her assistant, one of her assistants, and wrote a book about it. And this was in 2003 that the novel came out. The film adaptation of The Devil Wears Prada came out in 2006. And so this is the main thing we're going to be talking about today, obviously. It is a comedy drama. It was directed by David Frankel. The screenplay was written by Aline Brosh McKenna, and it stars famously the iconic, most brilliant actor ever, Meryl Streep, as well as Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, and last but certainly not least, Mr. Stanley Tucci. Yeah, so to give you an idea of the plot of the film, as I said, it was based on this expose about Anna Wintour. So Anna Wintour's character in the fiction version is called Miranda Priestley. And so Anne Hathaway's character, Andrea Sachs, gets this job as her assistant. And it's basically all about how intense and ruthless Miranda Priestley is, as well as her other assistant Emily, and how Andy kind of is a fish out of water and kind of doesn't really see the importance in a fashion magazine. She kind of takes this job right out after uni and dismisses it as just like a means to an end. But throughout the film, she kind of undergoes this makeover. In the original film, Andy increasingly becomes more and more committed to the job and gets the opportunity to go to Paris Fashion Week with Miranda Priestley. And that's where all things kind of come to an end. She kind of understands how tough the industry is. Miranda is this ruthless, almost bitch boss, but iconic character with like one-liners that, you know, say it all. I mean, that's all is just in like by itself is enough, but then you've got the entire monologue about the cerulean sweater, and it's just, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch it. I don't know why I'm saying this as if no one here has seen it. If you've clicked on this, you probably have, but I just wanted to give a quick rundown. One of the notable parts of the first film as well is Andy's boyfriend Nate, who is very unsupportive and has been kind of like villainized in the past 20 years for not being a good boyfriend. Like, he kind of is a little whiny and doesn't understand that, yeah, she actually starts to take this job seriously. But yeah, overall, Andy kind of, it's a bit of a coming of age story for her, if you will. And yeah, by the end of the first film, Andy, kind of seeing Miranda's true colors, decides to quit her job. She literally throws her phone into a fountain, which is something you can only do in 2006. I wish it was that easy to cut yourself off the world nowadays, but it isn't. And that's kind of how the first film ends. And it's become a cult classic, an absolute cult classic for anyone who remotely loves any sort of chick flick, any sort of 1% of fashion. And yeah, it's become an absolute classic. Yeah, ooh. And so, on to, we in the great year of 2026, we know that IP this valuable shall not go to waste, even if it's 20 years old. So a few years ago, I think in like 2024, the idea started floating around for a sequel, and it seemed that the leads were also interested in coming on board, and basically everyone signed back on to do a sequel 20 years later, which is quite mad. Oh, a small little tidbit. In the meantime, in the past 20 years, somehow Emily Blunt and Stanley Tucci are now related. If you didn't know, this is quite funny, and this has nothing to do with anything here. I just want to throw it in. Stanley Tucci became like best friends with Emily Blunt's sister, Felicity Blunt. So Stanley Tucci and Felicity Blunt got married and now like are a family. And so Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, her husband, are all like a big family with Stanley Tucci and Felicity. Like you see pictures of them once in a while. They do Thanksgiving. They like really feed the few people that give a shit, and it's just fun to see. And so seeing the press run, I'll get into the marketing in general, but the press run for this one is quite cute because you can tell that everyone's having a good time making the film, and you kind of see this like we are family vibe. And for 2 out of the 4 of the main cast, it's actually true, they are a family. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in. Back to the marketing. So then it was officially announced that they would do the sequel, and actually in 2025, I can't remember when exactly, but there was quite a few paparazzi shots of them shooting all over New York. But actually, there was a bit of a backlash, I remember, when these paparazzi images came out. Aside from the fact that, like, paparazzi is now really encroaching on films and their releases, I think we saw a very similar thing with Freaky Friday 2, where paparazzi images came out. Obviously, if you're filming in a public place, you can't not have people take pictures. People were kind of not vibing with the fashion that they saw in the paparazzi pictures. I do remember the sentiment being quite iffy, because the fashion in the first one was so good, but the thing is, it was so nostalgic that I think, it's quite difficult to live up to. But also another thing is that nowadays, costuming in film has changed so much. Even in, for example, the Mean Girls musical, I remember people hated the outfits on there, which I get because they weren't good. They were not good outfits, especially compared to the original Mean Girls film. And so, yeah, people were kind of starting to give that same treatment to this film, but also holding their breath, because at the end of the day, despite the paparazzi leaks, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of the film that obviously was not shot on the streets of New York, so you can't account for it. And I think the excitement for the sequel built up after that, and kind of completely overshadowed the potential stain of the backlash at all. So that's good for them, I guess. They did a really good job there. And yeah, they announced the release date, I think, can't remember when exactly, at the end of 2025. There was quite a few teasers and trailers that broke viewership records for the studio 20th Century Fox. They completely, not broke the internet, that phrase is now well overused, but definitely performed way better than they were expecting. And they were already expecting it to perform well, because why else would they make the film? So yeah, really exciting stuff. The excitement was building. And then also the fact that the release date itself was on May 1st of 2026 is absolutely iconic and completely genius, because at the end of the day, that is, as I said before, the exact period that the Met Gala happens. So the first Monday of May, Met Gala, makes complete sense. Obviously, the May 1st wasn't on the Monday, but it was like 3 days prior. So you've got all this excitement about fashion. It's like the day to do it, and it really worked. Another thing is, one of the original lines from the film that is absolutely iconic, and I will use the word iconic incessantly in this podcast. I'm so sorry, not sorry. It's just, how else am I supposed to describe it? Anyways, one of the iconic lines from the first film is "flowers for spring, groundbreaking," in a sarcastic tone. And so the fact that this film was then released May 1st in spring, I don't know. I think it all came together to be a really good way for them to, jump on the bandwagon and really highlight the film as well as it could be highlighted in terms of marketing. And I think they did a great job. One of the highlights, I tell you, absolutely iconic, took my breath away when I saw it, was the Vogue cover of April 2026, which featured none other than Anna Wintour and Meryl Streep as Miranda Priestley. When I saw that, I shit you not, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. Like, it's that good, okay? Like, the fact that they were able to do this, and in interviews I think they talked about how Meryl Streep was going to be asked to do the cover also to promote the film, and she's the one that basically talked Anna Wintour into featuring on it as well, with the headline being "Seeing Double When Miranda Met Anna." Girl, insane. If you don't understand how iconic this is, I don't know how best to explain it to you. Honestly, as I just said, Meryl Streep is playing Miranda Priestley, which is a caricature of Anna Wintour in real life. And so and Anna Wintour also famously does not do interviews, does not do covers, does not do a lot of press. She is kind of this like elusive fashion media mogul kind of thing. You don't get really that much about her as a human, but the fact is that I'm pretty sure she stepped down as chief editor of Vogue last year. I think she still is the like head of content or something for Condé Nast. Like, she's still a big figure in that company, but she's no longer the chief editor. I might be using the wrong words, but anyways, and she stepped down like last year. And with that, I think there was a bit of press about that, and she kind of became the subject of the press to some extent, which she had never really done before. And so the next year, having this film come out and both of them on the cover, I mean, it's just impeccable. And the fact that she can be so tongue-in-cheek with something that was clearly initially made to kind of bash her in the first in the book, right, is really just so cool. Another thing to note that they touched on in a few interviews in the run-up to this film is that they didn't have that much budget in the first film, and they really couldn't get a hold of a lot of big brands in order to feature them. And obviously it's a film about fashion, so The Devil Wears Prada not having any fashion big brands is like a big no-no. And so they had to kind of work around it. And the main reason that they couldn't completely source as many designer pieces as they wanted for the first film was that no one wanted to anger Anna Wintour herself. Like, imagine working for like one of these big designer houses, and this film that's a direct critique of someone who is like the like head of your industry is reaching out for you for pieces. You're not going to give them to them. You don't want to be seen to collude with something that's supposed to criticize this, huge persona and person who could really just, if the films are any indication, could ruin you. Yeah, and so in the second film, after the first film came out, Anna Wintour kind of didn't really take it personally, and she kind of saw it as like a fun characterization of her, and that's when the fashion brands and the big designer houses actually were able to contribute a lot more to the second film, and you can tell, like. So yeah, the fact that now she's on the cover with the person that's playing her character, just, again, 5 stars, no notes, it's impeccable. I have gone on forever about this specific thing because it was one of the main highlights of the entire marketing campaign for me. They really saw the opportunity and took it. As I said, in general, there was a huge press tour that was very much global and very fun to see. And then in, I think, one of the final trailers, they teased the song Runway by artist Doechii and Lady Gaga. And I don't know, man. I think they just hit every single nail they could probably hit on the head. It's just insane to have both of these beautiful women queer artists collaborate at all is already a feat on a song for The Devil Wears Prada 2 called Runway, which is what the like fake Vogue fictionalization of Vogue is called in the franchise. To me, this song is so joyful. It's like very much a queer joy song. I can see myself at Pride London. I can see myself with a beer in some beer garden with a DJ, with everyone dancing and just vibing. It's a summer festival-y kind of song. So and the music video, oh my god, the music video for Runway is also so cool. It's very like high fashion. They both look great. Doechii and Lady Gaga look fantastic. And they end up doing quite a few references to Lady Gaga's old music videos, which again, as someone who, in case you didn't know, hi, I'm Gaia. I love pop culture. All of this, my dream. I was eating that shit up on that marketing run. And then one other small detail that I really love is the way that they integrated quite a few internet celebs, internet personalities in the film itself, and therefore in some of the trailers. I mean, I've been following this girl called Kennedy Walsh. If you don't know who she is, she used to be a YouTuber. She doesn't post on YouTube as much at all anymore. She's more of a TikToker, whatever. She's trying to be an actress. She's been trying to be an actress for a while, and there she was, popped up right next to Emily Blunt on the trailer of Devil Wears Prada 2. Oh, she doesn't have any lines. I don't care. I was just happy to see her there. And then there's a couple other cameos by Amelia de Moldenberg, Wisdom K, which also super relevant for fashion. I mean, Wisdom K is just, we love him here. And then finally, last but certainly not least, Caleb Heron, I think is how you say his name. Caleb Heron, who's like the stand-up comedian, who's gay, very ruthless and funny in his comedy, was playing kind of Andy Sachs' character as the second assistant in the film. And like, I didn't know this man was an actor. Okay, buddy, let's go. Slay, love to see it. And he did a great job. He really did. So yeah, shout out Caleb. Love that for you. Oh, and finally, also one last thing about the marketing. They ended up doing all of these brand partnerships, of course, as they probably should in this economy. Very much modeling the whole like Barbie plan, where they had Diet Coke, Starbucks, all kinds of brands just really collaborating with them in their IP. And honestly, I understand that some people thought it was too much, but I mean, at this point, it's kind of become the standard, and I don't think it was too much, and I think it was well done anyways. I mean, there was a lot of makeup brands. Like, that makes sense for a fashion magazine. Hello? What fashion magazine film? So yeah. Now, let's get into my thoughts about Devil Wears Prada 2. I was absolutely terrified. As you can probably tell, the marketing was hyping me up so much. They really did almost everything right. And when it came to marketing, at least towards my target audience, it really just hit me. And so I got so scared that the film would not live up to the hype. Because at the end of the day, this is a sequel. It's very difficult to nail a sequel. Apart from Shrek, which is highly regarded as probably like Shrek 2 being the best sequel of all time, it's quite difficult to nail a sequel. And so I was really scared. I was anticipating the worst, but I ended up really loving it. I really did. I thought it was fun. I thought it was heartwarming. I thought it was funny in quite a few moments. Yeah, there was a few moments that were dragging a little bit more, that were a bit more slow paced, but at the end of the day, I was incredibly happy with this. And yeah, there's going to be plot devices that are a bit obvious, but at the end, but again, it's a film, like it's fiction. I'm kind of suspending my disbelief here, you know, and it worked for me. It really did. It was incredibly enjoyable. And so I was really surprised to see the mixed reviews it got. I'm going to talk about that in a sec. But yeah, before I do that, I just wanted to kind of give a few of my favorite references, because they did a very lovely and very appropriate amount of references to the original, in my opinion. I really thought that was well done. They had a montage of the fictionalized version of the Met Gala at the beginning, and what was hilarious was that the exhibit was actually something along the lines of florals for spring. Love. And then as Andy was going to the runway offices at the beginning, she walked by the street market and some vendor was selling belts and he was holding up 2 blue belts. Again, I see you, I see what you're doing. And then at some point in one of the scenes, I think in the Hamptons, you could see Miranda's twin girls, the little redheads in the background. Very, very short cameo there, but really fun. And yeah, I saw a Vanity Fair article kind of doing a rundown of the references, but I'm not going to lie, it was not enough for me. They didn't pick up on the blue belts. That's annoying. They didn't pick up on the fact that Andy was also having soup. I mean, I know Nigel in the film says that and nods to it, but it's still a reference. And also, last but not least, obviously a very heartwarming reference at the end was Andy's last outfit in the sequel, which was a perfect mirror, elevated version of Andy's first outfit in the first film. Sorry, not first outfit, actually, that's my bad, but the cerulean sweater. Iconic. Love to see it. And it looked like it was basically that same sweater but cut off to be a vest. Reuse, recycle, I guess. That was cute. A few quick fire notes on some of my favorite moments also. When her bestie was being a wing woman, I need to be a bit better wing woman, apparently. I'm not doing the best that I can. I was watching it with my single friend and we just looked at each other and I was like, I'm sorry, I need to step up my game here. Like, this is, she's doing it. She's really wing womaning. Oh, obviously there was the Starbucks brand partnership, and when Caleb's character, his name is Charlie, mentions that he had a venti, and then Simone Ashley's character, Amari, basically goes like, well, was it worth it? Hilarious. Now that's really giving the same sort of feel as the first film, like snappy, bitchy. I loved it. And then, Emily's character is such an amazing comedic relief in this, especially when they're in Milan and she's having lunch with Donatella and Andy interrupts, and then Donatella is like, come on, like, come back to lunch, and Emily snaps at her. She's like fully scolding her in Italian. Absolutely hilarious. Not you scolding Donatella Versace? Like, hello? Okay. And then the only thing that kind of broke the illusion for me was, oh my god, they pulled a You season 5 or whenever the hell they were in London, when they were at the dinner in the place where there's the Last Supper, which is called Santa Maria delle Grazie, and Miranda Priestley just ups and leaves, just walks back to the hotel through the Gallerie Vittorio Emanuele. Like, sorry girl, I looked that up, and apparently, I mean, Milan is a really small city, to be fair, so you can walk anywhere, but we're talking about Miranda Priestley, who is in heels, wearing couture. You think she's walking a whole 23 minutes to the Vittorio Emanuele galleries? Girl, please. That's not even all the way to the hotel. I don't even know where the hotel's supposed to be, but that's farther. So why are we pretending like it's totally okay for Miranda Priestley to melancholically just walk through Milan in heels? She's like in her 70s, no? Like, that's not happening. And that kind of pissed me off. But aside from that, I had a lovely time with the film. And actually, yeah, I was surprised by some of the criticism of the film, because I didn't think it was nearly as bad as some people thought it was. I mean, it got mixed positive reviews. And one of the main criticisms of the film is actually that Miranda's character's not as bossy, boss babe vibes as she was in the first one. That she's not as snappy, that she's not as ruthless. And I'm here to remind you, it's a different film. Like, okay, I know I sound condescending here, but it's a completely separate film that happens 20 years later in a world that we currently live in, technically, where, you know, social media kind of rules attention spans and magazines are no longer a thing and journalism is dying. Like, let's be real. I think they do a pretty good job at picturing it in the film and kind of showing the ways in which, you know, the power dynamics have completely shifted. And again, it's a different film. Basically, I was getting really irritated at this criticism, and one of the main things that it made me realize is that Miranda in the first film is a big fish, because it's also from the perspective of Andy Sachs, this first-time assistant straight out of uni who doesn't know anything about the fashion industry, anything at all, really. So why are we comparing a film that is a kind of a fish out of water with the big boss meanie to its sequel 20 years later, where, first of all, it's no longer through only Andy's eyes, like, at all. We see way more of Miranda Priestley by herself or with her partner, or, you know, more vulnerable moments where she's just having one-on-one conversations than we did in the first one. The first one was very much through Andy's eyes, at least from what I remember. Like, it was, you know, almost exclusively how she would present herself to Andy. And that's what I mean when I say it's a completely different film. And 20 years later, in this economy, Miranda Priestley no longer a big fish. And to be honest, my question is, was she ever a big fish? Or did she seem like one? I don't know. But in this economy, Miranda Priestley is a small fish. That's just how it is. She's not the one with the money. She's not the one who's able to keep up with the generations. She has to be told 1,000 times to be politically correct, which is funny, in my opinion. I think they do it in a funny way. But she's clearly, in her older age, struggling to adapt to this, you know, very fast-moving decline in her industry. Again, it's a different film. It's a completely different... If you were expecting Miranda Priestley to be just as bitchy as she was in the first one 20 years prior, did you want her to be unemployed? Like, she was not going to stay in this job. She had to adapt a little bit, and at the end of the day, she's still struggling to do that. So, anyway, that criticism annoyed me. Also because it's not like we don't see any ruthlessness in this film. It comes from a different source, because although you have the like smart little quips from all the characters that we love that are like snappy and kind of mean, but in a fun way that we enjoy watching, there's still a villain. You know, the villain is capitalism. The villain is the social and economic state of the world, as Jaden Smith would say. And another thing is, like, Miranda was a big fish because you didn't see her having these conversations with advertisers in the first film. You always saw her being the boss. Obviously, Miranda Priestley in a room with advertisers in this film, specifically Emily's characters representing Jewel. Yeah, Jewel owns her ass. I mean, how is this surprising? They need advertisers. They are declining in revenue by the second. Like, yeah, it's a criticism that I didn't find relevant, because it's a completely different film, and we just need to treat it as such, as a continuation in a fun way with the references, but still a very different film. And yeah, it's a completely new and different point of view, and it's not a bad one. I think it's cool that we get to see this side, but it is very different. Another criticism I saw was about Andy's romantic arc, and people were really shitting on the chemistry, or the lack of chemistry apparently, between her and the Australian guy that she has a thing with. I didn't think it was nearly that bad. I thought it was cute. Like, a film has to have a B plot, guys. Like, have we forgotten this? If it had only the first plot, you'd think it was way too fast-paced and didn't make any sense. This kid, he's like twice my age. This Australian guy seems perfectly sweet and reasonable and nice. And he's trying to help in the ways that he can, and he can't really do much. And actually, Andy's the villain in this situation, because she's kind of a bitch to him before she goes to Milan. Meanwhile, he's incredibly forgiving and saying, hey, I still want to talk to you when you come back. What's not to love? He seems like a sweet guy. Also because what came out in the last 20 years is that we've villainized the old character of Nate, her previous love interest, as this like horrible guy who couldn't give less of a shit about Andy. So now you see Andy, who's like with this guy who's clearly very forgiving and kind. Give him a break. He's better than Nate, at least. He seems chill. I don't really get that. Another criticism that I saw, that was actually before I saw the film, before the film even came out, is that in one of the final, like, first looks, trailers, clips, whatever, you met Andy's character's new assistant, kind of mirroring Andy Sachs on her first days as like the bumbling assistant, but this time it was an Asian character called Jin Chao, I think. And people saw the way that she was represented in that clip on the first time to be quite reductive and racist, like filled of Asian stereotypes. Yeah, and so there was quite a lot of backlash on that. And I thought that was quite interesting because I'm not part of that demographic, and although I'm aware of a lot of racist stereotypes, I hadn't really picked up on that in my first watch. Then I watched the clip again, and I do see what they were saying. They were kind of annoyed that she's represented as someone who has to like prove their academic prowess and be like, I graduated this, that, and the other, and they didn't deem her fashion sense to be great, like good enough to be at a fashion magazine, kind of making it out to be like, oh, this character's a nerd and she's Asian, and you've completely erased the potential of having a cool, fashionable Asian character in there, representing the, like, you know, Asian fashion consumers, for example, or like Asian fashionistas in general, which obviously, by the way, is a huge demographic of the clientele of these huge designer brands. So I understand the criticism there, and I'm not obviously part of the community. I can't talk on behalf of them, but I see how that was kind of a bit of a trigger. Eventually, when I watched the film, though, I do have to say maybe they didn't choose the right clip, because throughout the rest of the film, this one character does look and seem more fashionable than she did in that one first clip. Maybe it's because canonically it's the character's first day in the office, something like that. But also I don't think looking at the bigger film and the wider film that it ended up being as intense as it could have been given the first clip that we saw. But yeah, obviously not my place to say whether it was racist or not, just that I don't think that was the intention given the rest of the film. But you know, what's done is done, and I understand why people had problems with it as the first clip. At the beginning of the film, they depict kind of Miranda Priestly getting cancelled, if you will, and as they do that, they're obviously scrolling on Instagram and looking at memes, and one of the memes actually looks just like AI, but what's really cool about it is that it wasn't done by AI. Obviously AI has been on the rise for the past like years, but the fact that they actually integrated it in a very smart, accurate way that totally would have happened in real life, but also hired an artist. I think the artist is called Alexis Franklin, to create the artwork so that it looked like AI, but actually it wasn't. Iconic. I think that's cool. And then I saw someone say also that the bar is below ground, that we're praising this production and this director for choosing an artist over AI. But again, we're talking about the depiction of AI in a film, and it's cool that they made the active choice to get an artist to do it instead of doing it for 30 seconds on AI. Sue me. I think that's cool. Yeah, I saw backlash saying that the bar is on the floor because we're praising this production and praising the director for choosing to hire an artist over doing it with AI themselves. But I think that's completely ignoring the point that actually a lot of people would have just done it with AI. And so to go out of your way to hire an artist to make it look like AI, but actually it isn't, it gives humanity to everything. And I think it's very important to do that and to, you know, support artists, and especially in the arts, you know, fashion being an art, wink wink to this year's Met Gala, you know, film being an art, and then AI being slop, and so using artists to kind of counter that in a way. I think it's important, and I think, let's go, it's iconic, who cares, you know? Let's not be mad at everything. And right, those are my thoughts on The Devil Wears Prada 2. I just really liked it, and I hope you did too. I want to hear all of your thoughts in the comments. Please let me know if I missed anything. I'm sure I did. There was a lot there, I think I need to rewatch it because it was filled with just so much. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, the Finance Bros. Beautifully portrayed. Wanted to puke at the cinema. That's how good it was. Shout out to that representation. But yeah, if you liked it or didn't like it, I really want to hear your thoughts. Yeah. And finally, let's get into my 5-star recommendation of the week. Woo! Well, I kind of teased this already at the beginning, but I want to talk about Doechii. Yes, the artist Doechii. She's incredible, in my opinion. She's become one of my favorite artists ever. I wasn't really into hip-hop that much before. I've obviously listened to a lot of the hip-hop and rap that's become popular over the years, but it's not a genre that I usually delve into to discover things in. But when it came to Doechii, I first discovered her through her Stephen Colbert performance, and it just struck me as one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen. The way that she is able to tell a story, I think, is impeccable. I think she is an amazing storyteller, lyricist, and performer. The performance on Colbert was beautiful, and the fact that I then saw that she had choreographed it in like 3-4 days, that's crazy. Her and the two backup singer and dancers with the braids all connected together, it's just, you can feel the artistry jump off the screen. That led me to watch her Tiny Desk concert. My goodness, I have watched that so many times. I loved it. I think it's so cool. And then finally, I gave a full listen to her debut mixtape called Alligator Bites Never Heal, from top to bottom, and I highly recommend that you do too. She sings really well as well, so you get really a mix of all kinds of different genres of rap and hip-hop themselves, mixed in with a very soulful pop vibe in quite a few songs. And she's just great, man. She deserves all the hype that she's getting, in my opinion. And I'm happy to say that I became obsessed with her and her album just before she was nominated and then won a Grammy for Best Rap album last year. Yeah, I just think she's great, and I highly recommend you listen to her. Some of her newer songs, as she won the Grammys, she released that night a song called Nosebleeds, which is very like aggressive in a really fun way, basically telling the haters to go F themselves. And then she had Girl Get Up with SZA that came out not too long ago, kind of teasing a more melodic vibe for her upcoming album. And then finally Runway, obviously, with Lady Gaga, and like, what more can I say about that one? So yeah, I'm starving for more from Doechii, and I highly recommend you listen to her. Yeah, yeah, ooh. And that's it, really. I hope you enjoyed this little deep dive into my thoughts on Devil Wears Prada 2. As I've said before, please make sure to comment down below your thoughts. I'm so curious. And then if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I will be uploading hopefully weekly, and ring that bell for more. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening. Love ya. Bye. Oh, yeah.